need to get a
What a wonderful group of people. We're so glad that you're here. And it is our custom at about this time to do a little walkabout with the artists and get a little extra insight into the work. So this is our chance to do that. This is Riki. Come on over.
Would you like to
You want to see the painting?
Not in front of the painting, right?
Yeah. So I've known Riki kind of ever since I arrived here in Elora, which has been great. And she's always been full of ideas and making things with clay and teaching people ceramic things and then more recently really diving into the painting. And so it's a real pleasure now to have this exhibition that has a whole suite of paintings and as well some of your sculpture. In terms of just a little bit of background that we talked about, I mean, Riki did a lot with design work for a long time, and do you want to just say a little bit about your story and how you started to focus more on fine art stuff?
Oh, yeah, I guess years ago, I did graduate from art school with a fine arts degree, but discovered very quickly that I could starve to death. And I also had a young family, so I pursued graphic design and structural design. At that particular time, the Canadian government was doing a lot of trade fairs and sort of promoting Canada abroad, but in a really beautifully designed way, taking products and things to the industry and the rest of the world. And so I got very involved with that and subsequently became involved with designing the interior of pavilions for World's Fair. So my first one was 67 in Montreal. I worked on the Canadian Pavilion there. And on the Discovery train at the same time went across Canada to tell the story of Canada to Canadian people. And then in 69 worked at the World's Fair in Japan, and that's how I came to live in Japan for 3 years. And that was sort of my design. I did take a degree in architectural drafting, so that I could actually, do responsible design for the interior of buildings, so they wouldn't collapse when people wandered through them. And then I did a lot of work that had nothing to do with design, just because I was very organized. And then had the good fortune to move here, and I used that as an opportunity to just forget about doing any other kind of work other than pursuing the fine arts. So I jumped, both feet into doing just sculpting, and I discovered that quite by accident. Actually, I think Joanne Harder was here for that. I met her at a dinner party, and she invited me to be part of a show, and I think somehow she got the impression that I did sculpting. And I didn't. But I didn't want to disappoint her, so I went out and I got a lump of clay and built some stuff, and it wasn't fired, and I put it in the show. And Sari Maurice, who was living here in town, just was very excited about what I had produced, and encouraged me to keep going, and I did, and I really fell in love with it, and studied it, and got some instructions from people in town who really know what they're doing, and lovely lady who's standing by the door there, who really did a lot to help me, and then Beverly encouraged and helped me. Anyways, so and then because of my illness, sculpting became very difficult, just because it takes a certain amount of upper body strength. I couldn't do it anymore. I started to paint really seriously, and I'm really, really enjoying it, rediscovering a love that I had years and years ago. I've never really dropped it. I always dabbled in it no matter what I was doing, but now it's my life. Yeah. So
And
that's
That's
I
great.
know it's a little more long-winded, I think.
That's excellent. So some of the paintings I've seen maybe a few years ago maybe featured this red color. Some geometry, but quite abstract work.
Yeah.
So this whole series with this collage going on is kind of coming from a different place. There's a different...
Well, I think we talked about that a while ago, and it's when I was diagnosed, I suddenly found myself thinking back in time and doing a lot of reflecting about where my life had come from, why am I who I am, what makes me, what makes my children what they are, what makes everybody what they are. I don't know why, sort of rather than thinking about where I'm going in the future, I was doing a lot of thinking about the past and also getting ready for the future, sorting out the past, going through things and saying, okay, I'll keep that because I don't want to burden my children with having to sort through boxes of things. Oh my God, why did she keep that box full of rubber bands for the last 50 years? I don't want to do that to them. So I was sorting through things, and that made me really conscious of what an incredible story that my very simple family had. This wonderful love story that my parents had, and this wonderful, incredibly exciting love story that my grandparents had. And not just a love story, but what they've gone through, the battles they had, the struggles they had. But how, and the one thing that amazed me, because they lived through 2 world wars, and what I knew of them, there was no bitterness, no anger, no acrimony in any of them. They were loving, gentle people that just enjoyed life and enjoyed people, and so the war, and so it also made me wonder, why is it that people how can people survive that without having really deep emotional scars? So I wanted to explore that a little too in the paintings. So
in the kind of narrative that unfolds around the paintings, so the first sections are grandparents, and so you can see these figures appearing. There's also this relationship between sisters, one of which is your grandmother and her sister. Your mother. Or your mother. Your mother and your aunt.
That's right, yeah.
And then when we're over there, we really see the war come clearly. So there's some sections. And so you appear, first of all, in a baby stroller over there.
1943 is when I was born. And sort of, really in the thick of the war. And I always looked at the photos of my mom and interacting with this child and how ideal it looked. I mean, if you look just at those family photos, you never have an idea that a war was happening. All this chaos and corruption and horror was happening out there. And how were they able to maintain that illusion? Right?
So the day you were born, do you want to tell that story?
Oh, my first breath there last. Yeah, that's that painting right there where Sharon is standing. Those are my grandparents, my father's parents, and the poem that I've got there, it starts as that my first breath there last. I have the wounded images covered in the fetid dust of war. I won't read the poem, I'll let you read it, but the day I was born, they died. In fact, all my siblings did. I had 5 brothers and sisters. And my mother, knowing that I was going to be a difficult birth, and Daddy being in a prisoner of war camp, took the babies to be in Alsace-Lorraine with the grandparents. And the day she went into hospital, a bomb fell straight on the house and killed everyone in the house. So my father's and my mother's, well, not my mother's, but my father's entire family was obliterated, other than myself and his wife, my mother. So that's you know, where that's...
It's a devastating story.
Yeah. But it didn't seem to...
So when you say that you see this kind of joy in life in your mom, and how the war didn't seem to touch her, but obviously it did. But it's just remarkable.
Well, it did touch her, but it didn't make her any worse than human being. It made her, I think, if anything, a better, a gentler, more loving, more, you know. And I think that's why I started to gravitate towards Buddhism and the Dalai Lama, because of that kind of universality of belief and acceptance. And I think she did too. I mean, she was the first person who ever talked to me about Dalai Lama, although she was raised in a very strict Catholic background.
So let's move this way. There's so many stories we can say along that. Maybe you can talk about this.
Oh, okay.
So follow us around.
I purposely tried to make this one look like a turn-of-the-century greeting card. Because I did, because this is my mother and her half-sister, and the two women were very, very close, and they obviously, the love between them was just incredible. They just were very, very close. I just can't describe how much they loved me. And I used to love when I knew my daddy was coming, because I knew that my mother would be in seventh heaven, and everything was wonderful and good, and there was a lot of giggling and laughter. And here they are, the two of them, just shortly before she died. She was 95 here. And look at, if you look, you can see, I mean, it's just so obvious how much they love each other.
Your mom lived to a wonderful age.
Yeah. Well, my aunt lived to be 95 and my mother was 90 when she died, yeah. So, and and oh yes, the roses in the picture were sachets that my mother had kept. They were sachets my aunt had given her just shortly after the war. And what she used to do is sprinkle a little perfume on it and have it in her lingerie drawer. And after she died, I found them. And I kept them, and I thought, I'm going to do something with these one day. And here they are. Wonderful. Yeah.
This piece, I think, is a...
You like that one?
I do. It's particularly just intense. With the this is the maternal image here. This is you in the carriage with the whole context of the war going on. And also, just in terms of painterly terms, like how you were taking collage but embedding it in the paint and making some things emerge and some things sink back. There's this line of text in here that's in a little relief that the paint sits differently on. This also has this kind of cool gray against the warm red. It's very powerful composition.
It's sort of I look at it and I hear that hum that you would hear just as the planes were approaching. And I can remember it, even though I was terribly, terribly young, but I can remember that low sort of, and then all of a sudden, you know, you hear the sirens go off and you go into hiding, everything blacking out. But I remember a line from, there was just one line of the poem where they talk about everything glowing, that everything was burning, so that everything glowed with the fire, the buildings and the stairs and everything. And for me, that was a very sort of strong memory in itself about what I could remember about the war. It's burning and smoke. And so I wanted to create some of that feeling, and that, hence the intense reds even in the old, you know, the buildings, so that they're glowing with the heat of fire.
Yeah.
And then the bodies.